Okay, good evening. Welcome to Parsha Share. If you're listening online, please email me at j.golker@gmail.com. I'll send you the handout. So Parsha's Tetzaveh, of course, contains all the details of the big day kahuna, the clothes that Aaron HaKohen would wear, the Kohen Gadol, and also all the other Kohanim, their clothes. But perhaps Parsha's Tetzaveh is famous not for what is in it, but what is not in it. And one of the most famous features of Parsha's Tetzaveh is the omission of Moshe Rabbeinu's name. Now, we've spoken about this in the past, but I came across two more explanations to why Moshe Rabbeinu's name is not in Parsha's Tetzaveh, which I thought were fabulous, and I would like to share with you. So let's take a look. So the first few answers we'll just review from previous years, but really it's answers number 6 and 7 that I want to share with you. So why is Moshe Rabbeinu's name not mentioned in this Sedra? As the Baal HaTurim says, Lo hizkib Moshe b'zeh ha'seder ma she'ein kein b'chol ha'chumish she'mishah she'noiled Moshe ein seder she'lo huzkar ba. In other words, since Moshe Rabbeinu was born, he appears on the scene in Parsha Shemos, until the very end of the Torah in V'zos HaBracha, he appears in every single Sedra, apart from Parsha's Tetzaveh. Why? V'hatam, so the Baal HaTurim says, Mishum she'oma mecheni no mesifrecha. In next week's Parsha, in Parsha's Kisisa, after the Chet of the Egel, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu threatens to destroy Klal Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu pleads on our behalf and says that I'm with them, and if you get rid of them, then you're getting rid of me. Mecheni no mesifrecha. And as the Gemara says, "V'killas chacham afilu al tanai ba," the curse of a wise person, even if it's on condition and the condition is not met, has got to be fulfilled, v'niskayim b'zeh, and therefore there's a manifestation, there's a fulfillment of mecheni no mesifrecha in Parshas Tetzaveh. The question is, why Parshas Tetzaveh? So v'oid, he says, d'zu ha-parsha medaberes b'tachsisei kuhuna, because this week's Parsha deals, like I said, with all the begodim of the Kohen Gadol and the Kohen, and the adornments of the Kohanim. Or Moshe HaKahuna G'dolei Lotzes. Really, Moshe Rabbeinu should have been the first Kohen. However, but because he refused to go on the assignment, the mission of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not Mimenu v'nosnu la'Aaron, he was punished and it was taken away from him, and the Kahuna was given to Aaron HaKohen. Lochein lo nizka shmo shel Moshe b'parsha zu mipnei agmas nafshay. It's a little bit insensitive. This is the Parsha dealing with the Kohen and the Kohen Gadol, and to have Moshe Rabbeinu in this Parsha is a little bit insensitive because he should have been the Kohen Gadol. Where is that from? So that's the pasuk in Shmos Perek Dalet, pasuk Yudalet. Vayichav Hashem b'Moshe. Vayomer, he's not taking up the mission to go save the Jewish people. Vayomer hala Aaron achicha halevi yodaiti. Aaron achicha halevi. Aaron achicha, your Aaron is the Levi. I thought he was a Kohen. So Rashi famously says, he quotes Omer B'Shuden Karcha Kol Charan Avshe B'Torah Nema B'Roshim. Whenever it says Vayicha, there's something happened. There was a Roshem. However, V'Zelo Nema B'Roshim, but not here. V'Nemot Sinu Oynesh, and we don't see a punishment because of this anger. Omer Lo Rabbi Yosi Af B'Zu Nema B'Roshim. Why? Because it says Hala Aaron Achicha Halevi. Because Aaron was meant to be the Levi, not the Kohen. And you, Moshe Rabbeinu, you should have been the progenitor of all Kohanim. And therefore now it's not going to be like this. Now Aaron will be the Kohen, you will be the Levi. So that is what the Baal HaTurim is referring to. That's the first answer given because of the Agmas Nefesh that Moshe Rabbeinu would feel. Now, the other answers we mentioned in previous years is, I think Rabbi Yosef says this and others say it, Mecheni no mesifrecha. As the Baal HaTurim says, it's a fulfillment of Moshe Rabbeinu saying, Mecheni no mesifrecha. Sifrecha can read not just your sefer, Moshe talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but misefer chof. Chof is Gematria 20, your 20th sefer. Tetzaveh is the 20th parsha in the Torah. So Mecheni no Misefer Chof, I am going to erase me from your 20th book, i.e. Parshas Tetzaveh. That's another answer. An answer which I always quite like, and this is, I always feel that this is a very poignant answer. At the end of the day, Moshe Rabbeinu was displaying tremendous selflessness when he says Mecheni no mesifrecha. That was the high point, if you like, of Moshe Rabbeinu's selflessness, we once spoke about it. Parshas Noach, Mecheni Noach is the same words as Mei Noach, and that he was a Gilgul of Noach, and he was rectifying what Noach's lack of sort of selflessness. That was we spoke about previous years. But why punish Moshe Rabbeinu for it? Mecheni Noach Mesifrecha. So as it were, perhaps according to this Balaturim, you've got to fulfill the words, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu was, as it were, reluctant to do so. So he waited for the last opportunity. In other words, when did this all take place? In next week's Parsha, Parsha's Kisisa. So there needs to be one Sedra where we're going to have a manifestation of Mechein no Mesifrecha. Will it be Kisisa? Well, it just happened. So let's wait till Vayakel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no, I don't want you to be not in the Sedra. Pekudei, Vayikra, Tzav, Shemini, and Moshe Rabbeinu HaKadosh Baruch Hu is pushing it off until we come right round again, until it's Parshas Tetzaveh, and next week is Parshas Kisisa. We've run out of Parshas. This is the reluctance to omit Moshe Rabbeinu's name. We wait until the last occasion. That's perhaps one reason. The other reasons we mentioned before is that Moshe Rabbeinu is sort of hidden in the Parsha. We have a Nigla and a Nista part to every person's name. Mem Shin Hey has the Nista of Mem, of Yud Nun, and Aleph I've written on the sheet over there. The Gematria of the Nista part of Moshe Rabbeinu's name adds up to 101, which is the number of Psukim in Parshas Tetzaveh. So it's behind the scenes, as it were. That's another answer. The Vilna Gaon says that it always falls around Zayin Adar, and therefore it's an appropriate time to omit Moshe Rabbeinu's name. Now, on to the two new reasons. Ad Kan was previous years. Reb Zalman Sorotzkin was one of the great Gedolim of the 1900s, and he wrote a Pirush on Chumash called Yoznaim La Torah, an amazing sefer. And I looked inside Yoznaim La Torah, but I actually came across it in the sefer, the Shulchan Gavoya, and I've quoted from the Shulchan Gavoya, but he summarizes Yoznaim La Torah in a very clear way. Let's read this box. This is the third box on the page. Madua Dafka Parshazu. Why here in this week's Sedra? Ashem imena hushmat shmoi shel Moshe Rabbeinu nivchara v'nikva li'ikari b'shavua shechal b'yom halatov v'yom histalkusai. In other words, why Dafka Parshas Tetzaveh, which always falls around the birthday and the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu, Zayin Adar. Elo, listen to this amazing idea. Bikshu chachomim lahadgish. Chazal wanted to emphasize es oifiyah shel emunas Yisrael, the nature, the characteristic of the Jewish people, shelo hamida es hamanhig ish holikim b'merkaz ha'asiyah v'avodas Hashem. You've got to be very careful not to put the leader of the Jewish people too much in the center, because we serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu and we don't worship the leaders. Lahavdil me emunos zoros asher kovu es chageim u'moadeim, in contrast to other religions, where the centerpiece of their festivals and their celebrations relate to bimei ha'hiledes v'hamisa shel hamanig ha'machoykek. Everything is centered around the birthday, the death, the anniversary of death of their leader. Ki'ilu kol ha'emuna eina ela boi v'lichvayda, as if the whole religion is centered around him. Lo zu hidarka shel emunas Yisrael. That is not the Jewish way. That's not Jewish theology. Asher le'kava yomim gedolim halol zikaron l'mei moed v'chagiga. We don't have festivals to sort of worship our leaders. That's a million miles away from Yiddishkeit. Lefichach, therefore, adarabah. On the contrary, to de-emphasize Moshe Rabbeinu, b'shavua shechal boi yom petiraseh, on the day when on the week that Moshe Rabbeinu takes leave of this world. Lo yazkiru shemoi klal uklal b'kriya. We don't even mention him. We go to the other extreme. Hagam shem Parsha Shmois bon izkeres leidosai. True, in Parsha Shmois we mention his birth. Ein Parsha shelo yehi muskabo kama v'kama pamim. And there's no Sedra which doesn't mention his name countless times. V'lo oid ele shelule shehachachom mechishu motzu es tarich petirasa. Moreover, observes the Yoznaim La Torah, were it not for the fact that Chazal worked out when his Petira was, when his yahrzeit was, Lefizeh gam yom hulazah, and so too the day of his birth, Lo hayam yodeh. We wouldn't know it otherwise. It took Chazal to do a bit of research and homework to figure out, and Rashi brings it, when exactly Moshe Rabbeinu died. In other words, the Torah tries to de-emphasize it. Shekain bater le'ro laskirim klal, because the Torah didn't seem fit to mention it. And the point being, we try to de-emphasize the centrality of the role of the leader by not even mentioning his yahrzeit, the day of his birth, to make us realize that Avodas Hashem is exactly that, is serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu and not putting too much focus and emphasis on the leaders of Klal Yisrael. And therefore, Parshas Tetzaveh is the appropriate time to omit him from the Torah. Now, there's one final answer which I'd like to share with you, which is a fabulous answer. You mentioned before that I had a chasna tonight, right? So I've come straight from a chuppah of a friend and a neighbor, and he popped into me a week or so ago, and he said, "Listen, I'm speaking at the chasna. You got to help me out." So I said to him, "I've got a fabulous vart that you can say, and this is in his honor. I'm not being able to go to the dinner, so at least I'll share the idea that he's going to be sharing as well. But it's a fabulous idea." And I said this vart at the chasna of two of my own children. Moshe Rabbeinu, if you think about it, his name doesn't appear in Parshas Tetzaveh. It's understood to be a punishment for Moshe Rabbeinu. But why punish him? Like I said before, this is the high point of the selflessness of Moshe Rabbeinu. So why punish him? So the answer I heard was, I forget where I saw this, that omitting Moshe Rabbeinu's name from Parshas Tetzaveh is not a punishment, but it's a reward. How so? Listen to this. When was sort of the high point of Klal Yisrael in the whole Torah? What was the sort of the most special moment, the Chadesh Omeinu Kekedem? What was the greatest height that Klal Yisrael achieved in the whole of Torah? Well, it has to be after Matan Torah. We are, of course, the people of the book, and that is our lifeblood. So it has to be some point after Yisro and Mishpatim, which deal with Matan Torah, and it has to be before the Chet of the Egel, which is Parshas Kisisa. In other words, our Parsha, Parshas Tetzaveh, that really is the high point of the Jewish people. Now, the greatest delight for any parent, and certainly a parent who's speaking to his kala, his daughter, who's a kala, is the message you want to give them is that you're there if they need, but this is the time for them to flap their own wings and fly high and to move on. And the role of a good parent and the role of a good mechanech is to, at that point, take a step back and look down, if you like, with pride on what they've achieved, on this person that they've helped, this child who's now sort of flapping their wings and is moving on to the next stage of their life, but to take a step back, that you're in the background and you're there when needed, but not too much. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu, as it were, is taking a step back, and he's enjoying the nachas of the Jewish people at the high point of their existence after Matan Torah, before the Chet of the Egel. And therefore, his omission from Parshas Tetzaveh is an expression of Moshe Rabbeinu's delight, as it were, to take a step back and see his child, Klal Yisrael, flourish. So it's a very beautiful idea, Al Pi Drush perhaps, but one of 7 ideas that we presented tonight, why Moshe Rabbeinu's name is omitted from Parshas Tetzaveh. Okay, let's move on. So, Big Day Kahuna. It would seem that Big Day Kahuna, some ancient relic. I mentioned to you last week, I was in America and I went to this amazing museum, the Living Torah Museum, and he brings to life, it's named Kshmei Keinu, the Living Torah Museum. He really brings it all to life. But there's an idea of the Chovetz Chaim, which I think has some interesting ideas about lessons from the Big Day Kahuna, which are certainly applicable to today's life. So this is just an extract from the Sefer Chovetz Chaim al Torah. Let's take a look. There's only one piece on Parshas Tetzaveh, and this is it. Ve'ela ha'begodim asher yasu cheshin ve'efu deme'il. U'b'meseches erchin daf tes zayin amud aleph. In Gemara Erchin on daf tes zayin amud aleph, Mefarsh, it explains as follows. Da ha'me'il hoya mechape al ovein lashon hara. The Gemara says there that the me'il, the long robe that the Kohen would wear, would be mechape, would atone for lashon hara spoken. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu Yova Dova Shebekol v'Yichap al Ma'isa Kol, because the Dova Shebekol, the me'il, had bells underneath, and therefore you heard the Kohen Gadol walk in and out. So therefore, that me'il, which made a noise, should be mechape al Ma'isa Kol on lashon hara spoken. V'lochein k'siv, and that's why it says v'osiso es me'il ha'ephod kolil tcheles. Rashi says, Kolel Tcheles is Lashon of Kuloi, that it's all made of Tcheles. The me'il was made of Tcheles. The Kohen would wear Tcheles. Shat Tcheles doime liyam. Why? Because the Tcheles is similar to the sea. It's a green, bluey color. V'yam doime l'rakia, and the sea parallels the color of the sky. V'rakia doime l'kisei hakovod, and that reminds us of the kisei hakovod. V'alidei zeh yizkar sheyovo l'din lifnei kisei hakovod. And therefore, Tcheles is meant to, like with tzitzis, and so too the clothes of the Kohen Gadol, are there to remind a person that one day he's going to have to give judgment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Of a ton of Yahu Issa. And the Medrash says, Sheloshen hara oile ad keneged kisei hakovod. The Lashon Hara is so devastating that it goes all the way up to the kisei hakovod. Shenema, as he brings a pasuk. And by wearing this techeles, the me'il, he will remember and he will contemplate Aye devarav olim v'yishamar mizeh. He will remember that this color that I'm wearing is techeles, which is doime liyam and doime l'rakia and doime l'kisei hakovod, and this is the consequences of Lashon Hara, that it goes all the way to the kisei hakovod. So it's a sort of a reminder for him not to speak Lashon Hara. That's the me'il. Now furthermore, the me'il, the sort of the hem, it's got like a stitching around the neck, is pirosha b'soiche. Remez l'mash omr chazal, b'meseches chudin, daf peites amud aleph. Al pasuk it says, toile eretz al belimo, which is talking about the creation of the world. Al mi, but al pidrush, the Gemara explains, al mi ha'olam kayim, for whom is the world created, or does it exist for? Al mi shaboilem piv b'shas meriva, someone who stays quiet during an argument. V'hainu sheyichboish oz es kol diburo shelo yetze lachutz, that he just doesn't just shout out and throw words out. She sofo yeh lepiv soviv ma'isa oreg. There is a hem, there is a thick sort of double border around the neck of the me'il, which is an illusion for the Kohen to remember, that his lips are also sort of a hem around the border to prevent words coming out. The Pasuk says that it shouldn't rip. Or Pirish Rashi sirugam shalahem pihem kupul kadesh that it was like it was sort of sealed up in a way that it wouldn't tear. Or the remez lanon, to hint to us, kamosha Syrian she'adam lovesh hu lo lemagin lemechse, like a shield that a person has is for protection. Shelo yuzuk min achitzim shezarkim olav, to prevent arrows penetrating. Kain mishaboy lepiv hu lo lemagin. So too, a person who closes and seals his mouth, it should be a protection for him against the person who's trying to argue and agitate him. Because at the end of the day, the best shield to sort of quash an argument is to just be silent. Because if you're silent, you're going to lower the tone, you're not going to raise it. Because there's no response. If you don't respond, he's not going to fight back. Then it will come to blows if you keep arguing back. Etc. So just be silent. So another aspect of the me'il is the stitching around it, is to remind you of the stitching around your mouth, as it were, the words. The lips can seal the words in. And moreover, at the bottom of the me'il, you have pomegranates and you have bells. What are those two reflective of? Roimzim, they hint, Lamasha Omru Chazal, to what Chazal say, Gemara in Chulin as well, Peites Amud Aleph, Ma unosom shel Adam b'olam hazeh. What is the profession, what is the occupation of a person in this world? Yasim atzmo ki'ilei. He should make himself like a mute, that he can't speak. Yochalaf l'divrei Torah, Talmud Torah again. Maybe that should extend to saying words of Torah. Talmud lomet sedek tedabron, that you should speak words of Torah. Nimtza lefizeh, it therefore emerges. Shebechol eis sheyesh lo la'adam penai, that when a person has the opportunity, lo yeshiv bottle, don't waste your time, and liyilma Torah, use it productively, learn Torah. Of v'shasha eni yochel lilma Torah, me'ezeh sibah sheyin. If a person cannot learn Torah at that moment, he's going out to work, he's going shopping, then Yosim Atzmo Ki'ilim. Then that's the time to be silent and not to blabber and speak too much about others, etc. And that is what is on the hem of the me'il, Soviv, Parmoin, Zohov, Verimon. You've got the bell and you've got the golden and you've got the pomegranate. Parmoin Zohov, the golden bell, is Hudova Hamashmiya Kol. That makes a noise. Remez al limud haTorah, that's the time when you do have to speak, the limud haTorah. V'harimoin she'etz la parmoin, and the pomegranate which is next to every bell, ala shtika b'shah she'ein lo Torah. That's referring to the shtika. So a human being has got to use his power of speech judiciously. On one hand, he should speak productively words of Torah, encouragement, etc. That's the parmoin that makes the noise. But on the other hand, siag lechoch mashtika. Sometimes just to be quiet is actually the best solution. And that is reflected by the rimoin, which doesn't make a noise. And that's why there's the alternate parmoin, rimon, all the way around the hem of the me'il. V'misnaig ba'ofen zeh finishes off. Havtich lo Torah. If a person conducts himself in this way, taking care of when he speaks and when he doesn't speak, the Torah assures a person v'nishma koile b'voyel hakodesh, that his voice will be heard when he goes into the sanctuary. Hainu, sheyiskabel lemala kol tfilosav v'seirosai, that the call of his tefillah and his Torah will be heard up on high. So why pomegranate? I don't know. Again, one in mitzvah karimain, I don't know. But the point is, it's silent as opposed to the parmoin, which is noisy. Okay, let's just do one more piece. This is a very lovely idea of the Kedushas Levi. It's a question that the Ramban asks at the end of the Parsha. Like I said earlier, the Parsha's Tetzaveh deals primarily with the Big Day Kahuna. But towards the end of the Parsha, you've got something which seems to be totally out of place. It says, if you look at paragraph 3, it's in Parak Lamed, V'alsisa Mizbeach Miktar Ketores Atse Shittim Ta'ase Oisoi. The Mizbeach HaKetores. Paragraph 3. You've got the Mizbeach HaKetores, which is the Mizbeach inside the actual Heichel, inside the Kodesh. Right? You've got the Mizbeach, the big Mizbeach outside where you put all the karbonos on, and then you go into the Kodesh and you've got the menorah, the shulchan, and in the middle you've got the Mizbeach HaKetores. Amma Arkai, Amma Rochboi, it's square, it's not very big, Amma Saim Kemosa, only 2 ammas high, about this high, with that sort of shape. The question is, what is it doing in this week's Parsha? The Mizbeach HaKetores should be like with all the other Kalim in last week's Parsha. And that is the Kasha of the Ramban. The Kedushas Levi brings it. Maksha Ramban, Lama Kosov Maisa Mizbeach Kan. Why is the Mizbeach HaKetores over here in this week's Parsha, and Parsha Tetzaveh, Halab Parshas Truma Shom Mekayma? Surely the correct place for it is in Parshas Truma with all the other Kalim of last week's Sedra. That's the Kasha of the Ramban. So look what the Kedushas Levi explains. The Kedushas Levi, the Bedicheva, was of course one of the Chevra Kadisha, they were called. They were the 3rd generation of Hasidim. The Baal Shem Tov was the 1st generation. His Talmud was the Maggid of Mezrich. And then the 3rd generation was Reli Melech of Lizhensk and Reb Zusha, his brother, the Balatanya, and the Kedushas Levi. So the Kedushas Levi is one of the very early Hasidic masters, and his Sefer is a classic on Chumash. V'hanire, says the Kedushas Levi, Ki kan tziva HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'asos es Aaron Kohen Gadol. Because in this week's Parsha, there is a tzivui to make Aaron HaKohen the Kohen Gadol, v'la'asos le Big Day Kodesh, Big Day Kahuna, and to make Big Day Kahuna for him to wear. V'shema chas v'shalom yeh kitrug al zeh. And the concern is that when you have the appointment of Aaron HaKohen, there may be a kitrug, there may be some sort of accusation against him. Kasher hoye b'soif machlokes Korach l'kahuna shel Aaron, which in fact there was. In Parshas Korach there was some sort of challenge to him. Therefore, in this week's Parsha, which deal with the Big Day Kahuna and the appointment of Aaron HaKohen as the Kohen Gadol, immediately after that appointment, we have the Parsha of the Mizbeach HaKetores. Why? La'asos Mizbeach Mikta Ketores al Yidei HaKetores Huvra Kizeh HaTzivu MeHaKadosh Baruch Hu She'Aaron Yeh Kohen Gadol. Because what was the Ketores? This is what the Mizbeach is for. You bring the Ketores into the Mizbeach HaKetores. That's what it's called. Because it was the Ketores which ultimately verified that Aaron was going to be the Kohen. That's what it says in Parshas Korach. That after the whole rebellion, it was the whole incident of the Ketores A, which verified Aaron as the Kohen, and B, put an end to the Magefa, to the plague. Kashahoy be'emes b'soif machlokes karach b'kteres in b'mitzvah tezayin v'kal lahoven. So therefore, says the Kedushas Levi to answer the kasha of the Ramban, the reason why the Mizbech Keturis is in Parshas Tetzaveh and not in its natural, logical place of Parshas Truma is to allude to the fact that its function, one of its functions, would be that straight after Aaron HaKohen is appointed and given the Big Day Kahuna in this week's Parsha, we're going to put in place the Keteres, which is going to be to his aid when there's any challenge to his role of the Kohen Gadol. The Keteres is going to come and it's going to verify Aaron as the Kohen Gadol and quash any rebellion and any plague that happened as a result of it. So there we have three pieces tonight. Number one, the main idea of the omission of Moshe Rabbeinu's name, several answers that we had from previous years, and also these two new ideas, the Oznaim LaTorah, that the danger of hero worship in contrast to other religions, and then lastly that idea of punishment and reward, that actually perhaps this was not a punishment for Moshe Rabbeinu, but a reward, that he could take a back seat and look with pride at the high point of the Jewish people. And then we had lessons from the Big Day Kahuna of the Chofetz Chaim, and the answer of the Kedushas Levi to the Kasha of the Ramban of why the Mizbech HaKteres is in this week's Parsha and not last.